What if the most meaningful connections in life are the ones we're too afraid to acknowledge? Sometimes it starts with a simple touch, a fleeting moment, a tremor that betrays everything we've tried to hide. This is a story about two people who found themselves on the edge of something powerful, something real, despite all the reasons they shouldn't. This is Noah and Dr. Ethan Cross, and what began as a routine checkup became the turning point of their lives. Stay with me, because this story might just change the way you see love. When Noah first walked into Dr. Ethan Cross's office, he had no idea that this routine visit would change his life. At 28, Noah was just like most of us, busy, focused on work, and trying to keep things together. He never imagined that something as simple as switching doctors would lead him down a path he didn't see coming. You see, Noah wasn't in search of something complicated, or at least not intentionally. His old doctor had retired, and Dr. Cross came highly recommended. The kind of doctor you trust without question, thorough, caring, professional. But what people didn't mention, what Noah didn't expect, was that Dr. Cross was also, well, impossibly attractive. It wasn't just his looks, though. It was the way he carried himself. His dark, intense eyes that seemed to look right through you, as if he could see parts of you no one else could. His voice, calm, steady, but with a warmth that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. And his touch. It was gentle but firm, like he understood exactly what you needed without saying a word. For Noah, it was a strange feeling, one he couldn't quite define. He'd been to doctors before, of course, but never one who made him feel so seen. This wasn't just about health. It was something more, something he couldn't ignore. Dr. Cross spent more time with Noah during that first appointment than Noah was used to. The conversation went beyond simple medical history. It was about his lifestyle, stress levels, his work as a graphic designer. Dr. Cross asked thoughtful questions, took notes carefully, really listened. "I like to get a complete picture of my patients," he explained. "Medicine isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about understanding the whole person." Noah couldn't help but admire that. It wasn't just the professionalism, it was the sincerity behind it. Something in Dr. Cross's approach made Noah feel like more than just another case file. In a world that often feels rushed, where we're all trying to keep up with deadlines and expectations, Noah found himself in the rare presence of someone who took the time to genuinely care. It wasn't long before Noah found himself scheduling more visits than necessary. A persistent cough that turned out to be nothing, a cut on his hand that healed on its own. At first, he told himself it was all about being health conscious, but deep down, he knew better. There was something more. "You know," Dr. Cross said, with that smile Noah would soon become all too familiar with, "most people try to avoid coming to the doctor." Noah laughed nervously, not entirely sure why he kept coming back. "I'm just health conscious," he responded, a half-truth. But Dr. Cross didn't miss a beat. He didn't seem fooled. His brown eyes locked onto Noah's, and for a moment there was a silence, a weight to it. "Health conscious, sure," Dr. Cross said, his smile never fading. But there was something else there, something unspoken. In that moment, Noah felt it, the tension, the recognition that something had shifted. He was no longer just a patient. And Dr. Cross was no longer just a doctor. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. But Noah knew. This wasn't just about medical checkups anymore. What Noah hadn't expected was how much he would start looking forward to his visits. Not because he needed medical attention, but because he wanted to be there with Dr. Cross. In his office, with his calm presence, he had come for one thing, but found himself staying for another. The more he came, the more he realized that it wasn't just a passing thought, a fleeting moment. It was something that stuck with him. He didn't want to admit it at first. After all, what kind of person would want to complicate something as professional as a doctor-patient relationship? But as Noah sat there in the office during each visit, the feeling grew, and with it, an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Every time he stepped into that room, it felt like the lines between professional care and something much more personal began to blur. Something in him, in both of them, was shifting, and it was impossible to deny anymore. Noah thought he could keep pretending. After all, he was there for a checkup, not to explore any emotions. But somewhere between the routine appointments and those gentle, sometimes lingering touches, he realized that Dr. Cross had become more than just a physician. And as Noah left each appointment, his thoughts lingered, not on his health, but on something far more complicated, the way Dr. Cross made him feel. His hands, his gaze, they seemed to hold the answers Noah didn't want to face. But as the visits went on, the truth became clearer. There was something more, a connection that couldn't be ignored. It all changed in an instant, a moment so small, so subtle, that Noah almost didn't notice. But that's the thing about life, isn't it? Sometimes the most pivotal moments aren't the loud, dramatic ones. They don't announce themselves with fireworks or fanfare. Instead, they arrive quietly, almost unnoticeably, in the space between words, in the tension we try to ignore, in the smallest of touches. Noah had been going to Dr. Cross for months, and each visit felt a little different from the last. At first, it was just about the doctor-patient dynamic, medical, professional, distant. But with each appointment, Noah found himself drawn to Dr. Cross in ways he couldn't explain. There was an energy in the room, a kind of magnetic pull, but neither of them was willing to acknowledge it. It was easier to pretend it didn't exist, easier to maintain the professional boundaries they both knew were necessary. But that day, as Noah sat on the examination table, things felt different. It started like any other routine checkup. Dr. Cross, ever the professional, asked Noah to remove his shirt so he could check the tension in his shoulders and neck, the kind of minor aches that were nothing more than the result of too many hours hunched over a computer. Noah hesitated for just a moment, feeling the usual self-consciousness that comes with being half naked in front of someone else. But he quickly pulled his t-shirt over his head, trying to dismiss the fluttering nerves in his stomach. Dr. Cross's calm demeanor didn't help him relax. If anything, it made the situation even more confusing. This wasn't supposed to be anything more than a simple checkup. Yet, in the silence of that small room, Noah couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between them, in the air itself. As Dr. Cross moved closer to examine his shoulders, Noah tried to ignore the heat rising in his chest, the unfamiliar flutter of his heartbeat. He reminded himself that this was nothing out of the ordinary. It was just a medical examination. Just professional. But that was the problem, wasn't it? It didn't feel professional anymore. It felt personal, intimate in a way that Noah hadn't expected. The first touch was light, almost clinical, but it was enough to make Noah freeze for a moment, to feel a jolt of something deep inside. Dr. Cross's hands were warm, gentle, as they moved over his shoulder blades. But with every touch, every careful movement, Noah couldn't ignore the growing tension between them. The way Dr. Cross's fingers seemed to linger a little too long on certain spots, the way his palms seemed to press just a bit more firmly into his skin. And then it happened. A tremor. At first, it was so subtle that Noah almost missed it. Dr. Cross's hand shook, just slightly, as it moved down Noah's back. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a violent shake. It was a quiet, trembling movement, a telltale sign that something was happening beneath the surface. Noah felt it, a crack in the carefully constructed barrier they had built between them. The professional distance, the calm, neutral space that they had been maintaining for so long suddenly felt fragile, like it could shatter with just one wrong word or one unspoken feeling. Noah couldn't ignore it. He couldn't pretend anymore that nothing was going on. The truth was staring him in the face, and it wasn't just about the tremor in Dr. Cross's hand. It was about the fact that Noah was feeling it too. He didn't know when it had started, when the attraction had first taken root. But now, sitting in that examination room, he knew he couldn't deny it. The connection between them was undeniable. He turned his head slightly, glancing over his shoulder to look at Dr. Cross. His voice was quiet, almost tentative as he asked, "Dr. Cross, are you okay?" "Your hands are shaking." There it was, the question that neither of them wanted to ask, the question that laid bare everything they had both been avoiding. Dr. Cross paused. For a moment, everything stood still. The air in the room seemed to hold its breath. Noah could feel his own heart racing, his pulse quickening. He waited for an answer, but it didn't come immediately. Instead, Dr. Cross's hands stilled on his back, the warmth fading as the silence stretched between them. Finally, Dr. Cross spoke, his voice tight, almost strained. "I'm fine," he said, but Noah could hear the lie in his voice. It wasn't a confident, reassuring, "I'm fine." It was a quiet admission that, no, things were far from fine. Noah could feel the tension radiating off of him, the unease in the way Dr. Cross shifted, the way his fingers seemed to hover near his skin but never fully make contact again. The moment was fragile, delicate, and Noah knew that they were both standing on the edge of something they couldn't undo. The room was thick with unspoken words, the weight of their silence heavier than any conversation they could have had. And in that moment, Noah made a choice. He could keep pretend that everything was normal, that this was just another routine exam. Or he could ask the question that had been haunting him for weeks. "Are you sure?" But Noah didn't stop there. He knew that the truth was more complicated than a simple question. He was no longer just a patient, and Dr. Cross was no longer just a doctor. They had crossed into uncharted territory, and Noah knew that the only way to move forward, to understand what was really happening between them, was to be honest. "What's really going on?" Noah asked, his voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation all at once. It was the moment they both had been avoiding, but it had finally come, and neither of them could pretend it wasn't there anymore. Dr. Cross's response was slow, measured, and full of hesitation. "These appointments, they're not just about your health, are they, Noah?" He was quiet for a moment, and Noah felt the shift in the room, felt the vulnerability creeping into the space between them. "I've been practicing medicine for a long time, and I know when someone is coming in for something more than just medical help. These visits, they're not about your cough or your cut. They're about something else entirely." The words hung in the air, charged with emotion. It wasn't just about the physical tension in the room anymore. It was about the truth that neither of them had been brave enough to face. The truth that they were both feeling something real, something undeniable, and yet, they had both been pretending that it wasn't there. For a moment, Noah considered lying. He could make up another excuse, pretend it wasn't true. He could walk out of that room, find a new doctor, and never look back. But in that moment, he knew that wouldn't be the answer. He had already crossed the line, and so had Dr. Cross. So Noah did what he never thought he would do. He chose honesty. "You want the truth?" he asked, looking Dr. Cross in the eyes. "I keep coming here because I want to see you. You're the most interesting part of my week. When you look at me like I matter, like you actually care, it's the best part of my day." Dr. Cross was silent for a long time. Noah could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle between his professional ethics and the undeniable attraction that had been building between them. Finally, Dr. Cross spoke, his voice tight with emotion. "Noah, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this isn't happening. Tell me we're not feeling the same thing." Noah didn't look away. He didn't deny it. Instead, he asked the question that had been on his mind since the moment he first walked into Dr. Cross's office. "Tell me you don't feel anything when you touch me and I'll walk out of this room. I'll find another doctor, and we'll never have to see each other again." Dr. Cross didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Noah, his gaze full of turmoil, full of desire, and full of fear. And then, finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I can't tell you that, because it would be a lie." The silence between them hung heavy in the room. It was no longer just the quiet of a professional setting, no longer the calm that a medical office usually brings. It was something deeper, something more fragile. Dr. Cross had just admitted the unspoken truth. What had started as a simple doctor-patient relationship had grown into something far more complicated. The truth was out in the open now, and there was no going back. Noah sat on the examination table, still shirtless, exposed not just physically, but emotionally. His heart raced as he waited for Dr. Cross to respond. The tension between them was palpable, the weight of what they were feeling pressing down on both of them. This wasn't just about health anymore. It was about vulnerability, honesty, and something far more dangerous: desire. Dr. Cross, usually so composed, so in control, seemed to crumble under the weight of his own emotions. His hands, which had always been steady and professional, trembled slightly as he sat back in his chair. It was the same trembling Noah had noticed earlier, the same unspoken signal that both of them had been trying to ignore. But now, there was no more pretending. For months, Noah had come to Dr. Cross's office with excuses, little reasons that kept him coming back. A cough here, a small cut there. But those weren't the real reasons. The truth was that Noah had been coming back because of the way Dr. Cross made him feel. The way he listened. The way he made Noah feel seen. The way his touch, though professional, seemed to linger longer than necessary. And now, here they were, both standing at the edge of something they couldn't control. Dr. Cross knew it too. He could feel the pull, the attraction that had been simmering beneath the surface, and he knew that crossing this line would change everything. He could lose everything. His career, his reputation, everything he had worked so hard to build. But despite all of that, there was something in his eyes now, something Noah had never seen before. It was vulnerability, yes, but it was also yearning, a deep, undeniable desire. It was the same yearning Noah had felt every time they met, every time their eyes locked, every time Dr. Cross had touched him, even in the most professional way. For the first time, Noah realized that the doctor wasn't just a figure of authority. He was a man who had his own desires, his own struggles. And in that moment, they were both standing on the same ground, equally vulnerable, equally uncertain. Noah's voice broke the silence. "What do we do now?" he asked softly, his words almost a whisper. It was a simple question, but one that carried the weight of everything they had just admitted to each other. Dr. Cross took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair. He stood up, pacing the small space of the examination room, as though trying to sort through his thoughts. "This is crazy," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're my patient, Noah. I've been trained my whole life to maintain boundaries, to keep things professional, and now everything I've worked for is on the line." But despite the conflict, there was something else in his eyes, a recognition that this wasn't just about ethics, about right and wrong. This was about real feelings, real connections, things that couldn't be easily ignored. "But what if I wasn't your patient anymore?" Noah asked, his voice steady, though his heart was pounding in his chest. "What if we met outside of this office, as two people who are attracted to each other, not doctor and patient?" The question hung in the air between them, daring them both to face the truth that had been quietly building for months. Dr. Cross stopped pacing, his expression softening as he looked at Noah. "Noah, that's not how it works. There are rules, ethical guidelines. I can't just throw all of that away." But Noah didn't look away. He had already crossed the line in his own mind. And now he needed to know if Dr. Cross was willing to do the same. What if you could? What if it was possible? What if I transferred to another doctor? Then we could meet as two people, not as doctor and patient. Doctor. Cross seemed to freeze, his body stiffening as though he was fighting an internal battle. His eyes darted away from Noah's gaze, the conflict within him clear, the rules. The guidelines, everything he had been taught told him that what Noah was suggesting was wrong, but Noah could see it. He could see the desire, the temptation in Dr. Cross's eyes, and he knew that the doctor was just as torn as he was. Finally, "Doctor." Cross spoke, his voice low and almost hesitant. "I can't tell you that it would be easy. It would complicate everything. And the moment we cross that line, there's no going back. Everything would change." Noah swallowed hard, his chest tightening as he considered the weight of Dr. Cross's words. But he also knew the truth. He knew that sometimes the most important moments in life don't come when everything is easy, when everything fits into the neat boxes we've been taught to follow. Sometimes the most important moments come when we're willing to risk it all. To step into the unknown and face the possibility that the connection we're feeling is worth the risk. "I don't want to go back to the way things were," Noah said softly. "I want to move forward. I want to see where this can go." His heart raced as he spoke, but there was a clarity in his voice, a certainty that he had never felt before. Dr. Cross was silent for a long time, his gaze focused on Noah. There was a tension in the air, an electricity that neither of them could deny. "I don't know what to do with this," Dr. Cross finally said, his voice breaking. "But I can't pretend it's not real. I can't pretend that what I'm feeling doesn't matter." Noah could feel his own heart pounding in his chest. He had pushed Dr. Cross to the brink, but now he was ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Dr. Cross walked over to where Noah sat, the tension in his body evident as he reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he cupped Noah's face. It wasn't just a doctor's touch anymore. It was intimate, it was personal, and it was everything Noah had been waiting for. The warmth of Dr. Cross's hand against his skin sent a shock through his body, a spark of something electric that neither of them could ignore. "This is insane," Dr. Cross murmured, his voice hushed. "But I've never wanted anything more in my life." And then, without another word, he leaned down and kissed Noah. It wasn't a quick, rushed kiss. It wasn't a kiss of lust. It was a kiss full of hesitation, full of longing, full of the vulnerability they had both been trying to avoid. When they finally pulled away, both of them were breathless, their hearts racing. "We can't do this here," Dr. Cross whispered, his forehead resting against Noah's. "This is my office, if anyone finds out." Noah pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "I'll transfer to another doctor. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." He took Dr. Cross's hand, feeling the tremor in his fingers, the same tremor that had started this whole thing. And in that moment, Noah knew that everything had changed. They had crossed the line, a line they could never uncross. But instead of feeling regret, he felt something else, something powerful, something worth the risk. Crossing the line was never easy, but sometimes the things that matter most require us to take that leap of faith, to move past the boundaries that we've set up for ourselves and embrace what's real. Because real love doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't follow rules or guidelines. It just is. The moment they crossed that line, everything shifted. The world outside that small examination room felt like it didn't matter anymore. For Noah and Dr. Cross, nothing was the same. They had opened a door that could never be closed again. But with that door came not just uncertainty, but a powerful sense of possibility. Noah sat there, still in that room, his heart pounding in his chest. He was no longer just a patient. He was someone who had crossed boundaries, both professional and personal, in the most profound way possible. And the man who had once been his doctor was now someone he couldn't stop thinking about. Someone who had become a part of his life in a way that was as complicated as it was thrilling. As Dr. Cross stood there, a mix of fear and longing in his eyes. Noah realized that he wasn't just questioning the decision they had made. He was questioning everything. Everything that had come before and everything that was yet to come. But despite the uncertainty, there was something else there too. Something stronger than fear, something that pulled him forward. It was the hope that maybe, just maybe, what they were feeling was worth the risk. "What happens now?" Noah finally asked, his voice quiet but steady. It wasn't just about their next step in the relationship. It was about understanding what it all meant, what crossing this line meant for both of them. "Doctor." Cross didn't immediately answer. He was still processing, still trying to make sense of everything, and who could blame him? They had just taken a leap into the unknown, into something that neither of them had planned. But Noah could see it, that small flicker of something in Dr. Cross's eyes, something that hadn't been there before. It was vulnerability, but it was also acceptance, a willingness to face what had happened between them. "Doctor." Cross let out a deep breath and ran his hand through his hair, as though trying to collect his thoughts. The room felt impossibly small now, as though the walls were closing in on them, pushing them to make a decision. But Dr. Cross didn't rush. He wasn't one to jump into things without thinking, without fully understanding the consequences. And for all the uncertainty that filled the room, Noah appreciated that. "I don't know," Dr. Cross said finally, his voice quiet but filled with sincerity. "I don't know what this means, Noah. But I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't pretend that what I'm feeling isn't real." Noah didn't need any more explanation. He knew. They both knew what they had was real. It wasn't just about attraction. It wasn't just about a fleeting moment. It was something deeper, something that had been building for weeks, maybe even longer. It was the recognition of something they couldn't ignore anymore. They had taken a risk, but Noah could feel the weight of it lifting. There was something freeing about that admission, a sense of clarity that came with finally acknowledging what had been quietly growing between them. For a moment, they were both silent, letting the words sink in, letting the reality of what had just transpired settle. And then Dr. Cross spoke again, his voice tinged with both fear and determination. "This is crazy, Noah. You know that, right?" His eyes met Noah's, and there was a small smile that tugged at the corner of his lips. "I could lose everything for this. My career, my reputation, everything I've worked for." But Noah wasn't deterred. He understood. He understood the stakes, the risks involved. But he also knew that sometimes, the things that matter most require us to take the biggest leaps. The things that truly change our lives, the things that make us feel alive, don't come from playing it safe. They come from stepping into the unknown, embracing vulnerability, and trusting that what we're feeling is real. "Maybe it's crazy," Noah said, his voice firm yet gentle. "But I'm willing to take that leap with you. I want to see where this can go. I want to see what we could be if we don't let fear hold us back." Dr. Cross was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on Noah, as though trying to make sense of the words, the emotions, the possibility of what could happen next. And in that silence, Noah could feel the pull between them, the same pull that had been there since the first moment they met, the pull that was now undeniable. "So what do we do, Doctor?" Cross finally asked, his voice a little softer now, but no less determined. "What happens next?" Noah felt a smile tug at his lips. The uncertainty, the fear, the risk, they were all still there. But so was something else, something bigger, something worth fighting for. "We take it one step at a time," Noah said quietly. "We take the leap, and we trust that whatever happens, it's going to be worth it." There was a certain calm in that moment. It wasn't about having all the answers. It wasn't about knowing what the future held. It was about trusting each other, trusting the feelings that had brought them here, and knowing that, no matter how complicated or uncertain things might be, they were ready to take that step together. And that's when Dr. Cross did something that Noah would never forget. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he took Noah's, as though sealing the promise of what was to come. "Okay, Doctor," Cross said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, we take the leap, together." And in that moment, everything shifted. The room, the situation, the fears, they all faded away as they took that leap into the unknown. The leap that was so much more than just a step forward in a relationship. It was a step into a future where they would have to trust not only each other but themselves. A future where love wasn't bound by rules or expectations, but by the courage to follow what was real. Noah felt the warmth of Dr. Cross's hand in his, the strength in his grip. It wasn't just a promise of what was to come. It was a promise that, whatever happened, they would face it together. It was the beginning of something new, something powerful, and something worth every risk. Sometimes the hardest leaps are the ones that lead to the most beautiful destinations. And Noah and Dr. Cross had just taken theirs. As we reach the end of Noah and Dr. Cross's story, we're left with a question. What does it truly mean to live authentically? To step outside of the boundaries that society sets, to put aside the expectations others place on us, and simply be true to who we are and what we feel? You see, Noah and Dr. Cross didn't just fall in love. They didn't just break professional boundaries because it felt good in the moment. No, what they did was far braver than that. They chose vulnerability over comfort, authenticity over safety. And that's where the real power lies, in being true to who we are, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it feels risky. For months, both Noah and Dr. Cross tried to deny what they were feeling. They told themselves that it was just a fleeting attraction, that their connection was just a passing moment, that professional lines had to be maintained no matter what. But deep down, they both knew that the feelings they were experiencing weren't something that could be ignored. They were real. They were undeniable. And they both had to make a choice. Keep pretending that everything was normal, or embrace what was in front of them and let the world unfold as it would. In the end, they chose to trust their own hearts, to take that leap of faith, and to let the power of authenticity guide them forward. What's powerful about their story isn't just the love that blossomed between them. It's the courage it took to face the truth of who they were, who they could be together, and what they were willing to risk for that love. It's about understanding that sometimes the most meaningful connections in our lives don't come from playing it safe. They come from stepping outside of the lines, from embracing the unknown, and from being honest about what we want and what we need. Noah and Dr. Cross could have easily stayed in the comfortable space they had created, where everything was professional, where there was no risk, no uncertainty. But they didn't. They chose to live authentically. They chose to see each other as people, not just as roles they were supposed to play. They saw the humanity in each other, and in doing so, they created something real. It's easy to stay in our comfort zones, to avoid taking risks, to let fear dictate our decisions. It's easy to follow the rules, to maintain boundaries, to do what's expected of us. But what if the most beautiful moments, the moments that change our lives, come from stepping outside those boundaries? What if the connections we're meant to experience are the ones we're too afraid to embrace because they don't fit the script we've been taught to follow? What Noah and Dr. Cross show us is that true connection, true love, doesn't fit neatly into any script. It's messy, it's vulnerable, and it requires us to take risks. But it's also where we find the most meaning. It's where we learn who we really are, and it's where we find the courage to be our most authentic selves. And this is where we come to the heart of their story: authenticity. In a world that often values perfection, success, and following the rules, it can be easy to forget the importance of simply being real. But the truth is, the more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we embrace our true selves. With all our imperfections, our desires, and our fears, the more we open ourselves to the possibilities that life has to offer. Authenticity isn't just about love, it's about life. It's about being honest with ourselves and with others, even when it's hard. It's about saying, "This is who I am, this is what I want, and I'm not afraid to go after it." It's about choosing to be vulnerable, to be open, and to embrace the messy, beautiful process of living authentically. So, what can we take away from Noah and Dr. Cross's story? We don't always know where life will lead us, and sometimes the path isn't clear. But when we choose to live authentically, when we allow ourselves to embrace who we truly are, we open the door to possibilities we never imagined. Love, connection, fulfillment. These things don't come from following a set of rules. They come from choosing to step into the unknown, from being brave enough to follow our hearts no matter the consequences. Maybe it's time we all take a leap. Maybe it's time we stop pretending, stop holding back, and start living in a way that's true to who we really are. Because when we do, that's when we begin to experience the magic of living authentically. So, ask yourself, what's holding you back from being real? What connections are you avoiding because they don't fit into the neat box you've been taught to live in? What would happen if you stopped playing it safe and allowed yourself to step outside the lines, to embrace your own truth, no matter what others might think? The truth is, the best moments in life, the ones that truly matter, don't come from doing what's expected. They come from living authentically, from taking the leap, and from embracing who we are, flaws and all, just like Noah and Dr. Cross did. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of life worth living. And there it is, the journey that began with a simple touch, a single moment of vulnerability, has unfolded into something so much deeper. Noah and Dr. Cross took a leap, not just into each other's arms, but into the unknown, embracing authenticity and love in a world that so often tells us to stay within the lines. But here's the real question. What about you? Are you ready to take that leap? To live authentically, to embrace what your heart is telling you, even if it's risky or uncertain. Sometimes, the best things in life come when we step outside of our comfort zone, just like they did. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own fears, desires, and the boundaries you've been holding on to, don't just sit with it. Take action. It's time to live authentically, to break free from the rules, and to follow what feels real. If you believe in the power of authenticity, love, and vulnerability, hit that like button. If this story inspired you, if you felt it, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more stories that challenge us to live boldly, love fearlessly, and never stop being true to who we are. And remember, the most powerful connections, the ones that truly change everything, happen when we stop hiding and start embracing the real us.
Take that leap. Who knows what could happen next?